Welcome to I Know What You Watched Last Week, episode 10. We are now into double figures. What did we watch?
Right, we watched Nefarious, followed by Chariot, and rounded off with Don't Let Her In.
Least favourite to favourite. It's just pretty obvious to me. If we don't have
Is
the
it
same
really?
one, I'll be surprised if we don't have the same.
Well,
running
I
order.
wasn't sure how to place them because I thought they were all relatively poor. But I have to admit, some of them are more entertaining, and for once I also looked into the budgets and was quite surprised at what they managed to make it for. I think in third place for me is Nefarious. In second place is Chariot. And Don't Let Her In was probably the most entertaining.
Takes
to
the
me.
gold.
Yeah.
That's also my exact order.
Okay.
So I tried to look for budgets for this and didn't find them, so yeah, I'd be interested to know what you say they will cost.
Yeah.
My guess would be that from least favourite to favourite had diminishing budgets. So I'd say Nefarious had the most, Chariot had the second most, and the least money would have gone to Don't Let Her In.
That's incorrect from my sources. However, I couldn't find the budget for Nefarious. But before we get into discussing the budgets, I think we should start with the talks of Nefarious in third place. We might as well start with that one.
Rock bottom for me.
Yeah, I was incredibly bored, and the few things that I was looking forward to just turned out to be the worst twist you could possibly imagine. So, specifically, during an interview between a serial killer who's awaiting who's on death row, right, and a psychiatrist, psychologist, I never remember the exact difference, but is there to determine whether the serial killer is actually sane or insane, whether he can be killed or not.
He claims to be possessed.
By a demon, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin with this movie because...
Well, I'm going to start with the thing that really bothered me, because at the beginning of this interview, the demon serial killer man predicts that the psychologist will have committed 3 murders or killed 3 people by the time their interview's over. So I was like, oh, interesting. How are they going to do this? But the deaths are completely away from what you see, and it's very misleading. It's not what I expect in a horror movie.
This movie had just so many pet peeves of mine, and one of them being it's a movie that just masquerades as a horror movie. This is not a horror movie.
Horror.
It's not really even a movie. It's more like religious propaganda. And it had horrible dialogue. Absolutely the worst dialogue you could imagine, which I'll give some examples of in a bit. The demon that we talk about, it was like the demon, he had a tic, like it was just like a guy who had Tourette's, and some multiple personalities. The guy that plays him, I think his name was Sean Patrick Flannery, I think I've got that right.
Yeah,
Sean Patrick Flannery. And he says that this is one of the movies that he's most proud of ever being in. And I was thinking, wow, you must have been some right stinkers if this is top of your game.
Yeah.
And then it actually occurred to me, maybe he really likes it because he's a narcissist and he's in 98% of this movie, isn't he?
Well, it centres on just the 2 of them for the entirety of it,
that's
just talking.
That's another problem for me. First 40 minutes of this movie are all in the interrogation room. So you look at the same room and the same 2 actors for 40 minutes.
With the same shots.
And none of it is engaging. None of it is entertaining. It has none of those things. And then they eventually take you out of the room, but it only takes you out for about 2 minutes for what is literally a scene of a cigarette break. And then they're back into that room again for about another half an hour. And it was so dull.
Yeah. And they kept trying to do this thing of making you feel sorry for the possessed guy because, the demon's talking about how he'll get him into trouble, into situations where he's in pain, and then he'll leave the body so that it's the original human inhabitant who gets to deal with the consequences. And they went on that quite heavily. But because it was all so badly written and not anywhere near well enough performed by the actors, I just didn't really feel anything.
The performances were horrible, the writing was horrible, the direction was horrible. I'm not sure if the performances were so bad because of the writing and the direction, which I'll probably put it more on them, because the two absolute Burks wrote and directed this movie. Their names are Chuck Konzelman and Carrie Solomon, who apparently grew up next door to each other. And yeah, this, as I said, it's more like a religious propaganda movie, right? And you had the demon, Sean Patrick Flannery's. Well, actually, I think the demon is actually called Nefarious. So the title of the movie.
Nefarious or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And the
title was the best thing about the film.
The demon starts talking about abortion.
Yeah.
And all this kind of thing. But the demon is horrified by abortion. Now, what demon would be horrified by abortion? A demon from hell would be loving abortion, just dead babies, essentially, right? If you want to call it that. So the writers have kind of contradicted themselves, because all they've made here is an anti-abortion movie. No matter what you want to call it, that's all this is. And they also mention other things, like, media. How media is evil. They mention things about gender, politics, all this stuff. And that's all well and good. But just saying, oh, this stuff and this stuff and this stuff, I don't agree with it. I think it's bad. It's just boring.
And it's always the funniest thing when people are like, oh, films and media are killing society, and they say it through film and media. I don't get it.
Yeah. they go on about slavery, sex trafficking, hate speech, gender. TV media is evil, and as I say, none of it is interesting. There's a little bit also about capital punishment, and the demon says that he prefers the chair to an injection and all this kind of thing.
I don't really understand how you can go through all of those topics, whether it's political or religious views that you agree or disagree with, either way, and make such a boring film, because I barely even remember them touching on any of that stuff. I was so zoned out for the whole second half. It was
I'm used to hearing absolute drivel in movies produced in America, let's just say Hollywood, by the uber lefties, right? I'm not an uber lefty, and I'm not uber conservative. I'm just whatever. I'm just a regular person, right? As we are. And all they've done is just insert their political agenda into all of the dialogue and everything. So I looked up these two Burks who made this movie, and they have another movie, I forget the title, but the front cover is a close-up of half of a woman's face, and it has text down it. And again, the movie is about abortion, and the tagline of the movie is something along the lines of, "She was pro-choice until she saw something that changed her world forever." So these people only have an agenda, and it goes back to the pet peeve of them just using the genre of horror somewhat just to peddle all of their nonsense. And going back, as I just said, that these uber lefties have made some of the worst movies in the world and put themselves into the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they put themselves into the latest Wrong Turn. Let's just, for argument's sake, let's call these people right-wing, even though it doesn't really mean much anymore. It's kind of different to what it used to mean. I never thought that they would manage to come up with as much drivel as the uber lefty agenda, but they have, and they're both absolutely useless, and it should instead just be talented people who just want to entertain making movies. So at this point I'm starting to take it personally, because this was one of the worst, and how have these guys managed to make a movie, more than one movie by the way, several movies now, all of it being trash.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to get so much into politics, but I guess that movie
I'm not really trying to get into politics. I'm just slamming the movie for injecting constant politics in it, and that's what made it really boring as well. It wasn't new, it wasn't informative, it wasn't anything. It was just a rant.
What I thought was really funny though, when you go onto the IMDb page, and at least when I looked it up, the first comment was saying something about oh, people have said this is a religious propaganda, and I'm an atheist and I really enjoyed it.
I can see right through that.
I watched this movie just for entertainment, and I thought...
Well, that's the thing. The fact that they're saying, I'm an atheist and I enjoyed this movie, is clearly... That might be like Rick Kozelman's, wife writing that. Someone that knows the directors. These two people should not be allowed anywhere near a script or a camera ever again.
Well, they could make religious movies, propaganda movies,
No,
whatever. But
talking about like
well.
religious, like again, I'm not religious. We're not religious at all. But I'm also just sick of religious people just in your ear all the time. I even get it in real life. So, around the corner from us, some lovely people, but they're Jehovah's Witnesses, and all they ever do is bother me. Like, I'm too kind-hearted to tend to go away. So I stand there and I listen to their spiel every time I bump into them. But it's like, I don't want to read your materials. Can't we just say hello, good morning, and be done with it and move on? I've also have an ex-relationship where the mother who got into Christianity after her second marriage, and she was constantly trying to get me to go to church. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were always trying to get me to go to church, and they always seem to leave you alone. So I think they can sense an evil inside me or something like this, where they feel like they have to get me to their church.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the other way around. There's an evil hidden by this sweet exterior, and so they don't dare approach.
Well, I know that, and I just think, yeah, you've baffled them. But yeah, this I don't know if you enforce any kind of beliefs that I have on anybody, and I'm just sick of movies doing it. It's just so tired. When is the next just raw entertainment horror movie going to come out on, a half decent budget? This movie I saw it did make like $5 million, so it did.
We don't know how much it cost.
Don't know how much it cost.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't have been that much because, like you said, there's one location essentially. There's two actors. There was barely any change in lighting and like no special effects.
No, and the wardrobe was terrible. It's like supposed to be a movie about a possessed guy, and people are wearing powder blue suits, and he's in his bright orange jumpsuit, which is a regular thing I know, but the way that it's lit and everything, just terrible. The demon performance was just laughable. He had so much airtime, so much screen time, and it was just kind of all over the place, really over the top, and it just reminded me of a guy with Tourette's, that's all. And he did have one thing I've never seen before. When the demon was coming through, the demon ordered a burger and a milkshake from the warden. And he was like, I would like a burger, well done, and a milkshake. Don't screw it up, it's very important to me.
No, you've got that completely wrong. That was the guy who ordered it, and then the demon took over afterwards and said, actually, cancel that, I don't want it.
I wasn't finished yet.
Oh.
I was about to say, yeah, I might have got it wrong, and it was the demon. The demon then comes in and cancels the order, which is kind of dumber.
And the demon cancels it.
Yeah. Either way, just ordering the burger really stuck out in my head because it was just so the acting of the ordering of the burger and the cancelling of the burger. So he's supposed to be not two different people, but he's supposed to be not possessed and then possessed, and it was just the same thing both times. The only other thing that really made me think in this movie was when they take the demon guy at the end to be put down, essentially, put to death in the electric chair. So they have the room of people that have to witness it. And they have a guy that comes out and he says, right, when we put him, when we get rid of him, I don't want to see any cheering or any real emotion. And I was like, is that a real thing? Is there a guy, almost like a master of ceremonies, who talks to the crowd who are watching the execution and comes out and says to them, da-da-da-da-da, don't cheer, don't laugh, don't whatever.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It also just got me thinking about, kind of capital punishment a little bit, because this movie was so brain dead that I had to take my mind elsewhere. And the capital punishment thing, because the demon says, yeah, I kind of prefer the chair to lethal injection, all this kind of thing. And I think they mentioned about how expensive it is and things like this, and I was just, it went all over the place. But it made me think about just the concept of lethal injection and electric chair, and people watching it. And I was wondering, could I just sit there and watch it? Like, what kind of an experience is that?
Not a pleasant one.
Yeah, I think there are just so many differing opinions on that kind of thing, because maybe if someone wronged you, you'd want to watch someone be put down. But basically, yeah, this movie was so poor that it just took my thoughts elsewhere. Oh look, they're doing an execution scene. I'm just gonna start thinking about execution. The demons ordered a burger. I started thinking about rubbish fast food places against other places. This movie had nothing. So in a way, this movie kind of thinks that it's broaching important subjects, but it does it in such a ham-fisted way that I would not recommend this. In fact, I'd recommend people just to stay as far away from this piece of crap as possible. And I'm not, we watch some real stinkers, but we can still enjoy it. There was nothing entertaining about this movie whatsoever. And if I ever see those guys' names again, Solomon and Konzelman, you just know to stay well clear of it.
Skip it.
Yeah, I think these two should be put down.
Oh God.
Woohoo! Let's move on to the next movie.
Yeah. So the next one, Chariot.
Chariot.
Yeah, Chariot.
Now explain the general story of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So 7 strangers wake up on a plane in flight with no idea how they got there or why they are there. And I guess it escalates from there.
Not a bad premise, and the production value didn't look that bad to me. So let me know now, how much did it cost? I'm going to guess 1 million.
I could not actually believe it when I saw it was a mere $42,000.
I can kind of believe that as well, but how did they get to like rent the fake plane and all this kind of thing?
Well, seeing as it's only one location and it was small as well, that was one of the trivia facts.
$42,000.
Yeah.
So they must have done this in 2 days or something then.
Well, it explains, because it didn't look cheap to me. It didn't stand out as like, oh, I bet they had a really low budget. That is something they really did well on. But what I did constantly find very distracting, if in a slightly amusing way, was some of the performances. Some of them were really just...
Again, I'm in total agreement. It was really like hammy acting, like so over the top, and some of the writing at points was just, again, like head scratching. Some of it bordered on parody of itself.
That's why it was quite funny at points.
So one of the 7 people that wake up on this, moving airplane, this it's already in mid-flight, so they wake up, and one of the guys happens to be back on ground. He's a big rig driver, so he drives a truck. And at some point in this movie, when the characters all have to break in to the cockpit to try and steer the plane where they need it to go, they get into a conversation, and the guy's like along the lines of, "I think I could drive this thing. I drive a big rig back at home." And I was like, that doesn't mean that you can fly an airplane. And he was being questioned. But you've
already predicted that from like early on
from
in the
real
movie.
I think I predicted within like 10 minutes. As soon as I heard that he drives a big rig, I said, this guy's going to try and fly the plane. And lo and behold, he tried to fly the plane. But this guy had a scene with another person, and he was like, "So, tell me about your achievements. Tell me about your life." And he's like, "I don't know about achievements. What I do know is, I know how to be a failure. I know how to run a business into the ground. And I sure as hell know how to neglect my family." Because at this time he thinks he's going to die. Yeah. So he just starts with all this melodramatic rubbish, which comes out of, straight satirical South Park style. They also have a character who's from the Middle East. Now, when they're trying to break into the cockpit, when they're trying to come up with ideas of how to get into the cockpit, he's like, "I know what I can do. They're going to take one look at me through that camera and assume that I'm a terrorist. So I'm going to build a fake bomb and attach it to the wall just outside the camera." I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, he had some... He was actually one of my favourite actors, though.
He was the best actor. He was easily the best performance.
With what he was given. But also, because this whole thing is supposedly based on true events, and I'd really, as always, like to know to what degree it's actually true. Because I guess I could believe in, like, a government programme being tested and all of this, but... There's a point where, again, spoilers here, but the pilots apparently
You can't spoil this movie.
The pilots
it's too poor.
Are not allowed to communicate with anybody, and they have guns, they're armed, and they're under instruction that if anyone tries to get into the cockpit, they should shoot them.
Yeah, because this is like a government programme, isn't it, which they're doing.
But the thing is, it's a government programme to take the most important members of society, according to them, and put them on this plane should something happen that the country is basically getting destroyed. So to safeguard these important persons. And I thought, well, if you're doing that, surely those orders make no sense. Let's tell them nothing. They've been abducted. Their family's all just been left there to die. And if they try to get in touch with the pilots, let's kill them. Like, doesn't that just go against the whole point of saving them in the first place?
This movie was too dumb for me to even care about any of the real storyline. Once you get into the ultra cliche characters within 5 minutes, and within 5 minutes they're acting in ways and speaking to each other in ways that people would never ever interact with each other. And did you say there were 7 people on there?
I think that was what it said.
Out of all 7, I basically just took a look at each one of their faces within 2 minutes, and I said, that's going to be the annoying guy, that's going to be this person, and this person, this person. And lo and behold, you could tell it all. And as I mentioned, the premise of the movie is not bad. People wake up on an aeroplane, they don't know why they're there. But then just to have the climax of it being that this flight is a test run for a government program was really lame. It was so lame. I was thinking, because I was thinking at points, 1/3 of the way, halfway through, okay, how is this movie going to be resolved? Why are they on the plane? I was somewhat intrigued.
Yeah, well, that was one of the good things of it, that I was consistently kind of interested.
But then it was just a terrible payoff.
Yeah.
And of course, when the big rig driver gets into the cockpit and he's next to like the assistant pilot or the proper pilot, whatever, who's dying and eventually dies. So then the big rig guy just starts flying the plane by himself and he's landing in a city, and then the movie just kind of ends. But if you hang on to the end credits, you find out whether the plane lands or crashes, which I guess is the big be all and end all. But by the time that they brought up the fact it was a government thing, they'd lost me then. I was like, this is dumb. This is not, again, it was listed on the horror as more just a suspense movie.
Yeah, horror is not at all how I would have classed it. My favourite thing in the whole movie was the performance of, I guess, the lead, the guy who was supposed to be, the pillar of the group, the really
big rig
level-headed, guy. Yeah, the
you were saying throughout the movie you were saying
that
he sucked.
Let me finish. He was my favourite because this is just such a, exactly what you're supposed to get from this character. And he so didn't give that. He gave, Dwayne The Rock Johnson giving his, concerned look throughout the entire film, and it took away any credibility of this guy as a leader. I just couldn't stop laughing at his terrible casting.
The whole thing was laughable. As I said, reasonably entertaining for the hammy, cliched roles, and everyone just chewing the scenery, essentially.
And much more appreciated once I'd seen the budget. I'll give him that.
Yeah, now that I know...
Very impressive.
Now that I know it cost $42,000, amazing, but how the hell did they even make a movie with that budget? As we're finding out what we need for Heathen, and it's literally 10 times that, which is still kind of a pittance, but it's got to be made right.
Yeah, but we've got a lot of things like SFX, and we need a lot more. I mean, once you've got that small contained location, you've only got minimal lighting setup changes. There's not much makeup. There's, same costume throughout. You just need a lot less people and not a lot less resources than something like Heathen.
Pretty much covered Chariot. Not much more to say. Number 1, don't let her in.
Yeah.
This is a movie produced by Full Moon Pictures, who are responsible for the likes of Puppet Master, Subspecies, Demonic Toys, Killjoy. So, and of course the original Castle Freak. So they got previous. Okay,
so I don't remember the exact number now, but I believe the budget was around 125,000.
Yeah, I would have guessed early.
So about 3 times.
Early six figures, and
what Chariot was for.
This is quite something that happens quite a lot these days. I think is that horror movies, are lasting for about 70 minutes. There's a lot of movies that have been put onto Amazon in particular, which all have about a 70 to 73 minute running time, which not that long ago wasn't really a thing. So it's almost like a long episode or something, or just a very short movie, and it is over quickly.
I think they had enough time to convey everything they needed to for that film, at least.
Yeah.
So well, actually, I guess we should again summarise briefly what kind of happens in this. So there's a young couple with a massive apartment.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be very well off. Yet they have like this gigantic loft with
huge
exposed brickwork.
Oh, and it's beautiful.
Massive windows. It's just so unrealistic to have so-called poor people in just massive apartments. So that's why they got to let her in, I think, so they got to pay the rent.
I hadn't finished my summary when you got annoyed by the massive apartment. So, the two of them are renting out a spare room to cover their costs.
Yeah.
And that's where the third wheeler steps into this relationship.
The one that you shouldn't be letting into the house.
Yes.
Serena, her name is.
Yeah.
And Amber is the name of the girl that lives in the house, and her boyfriend is a wannabe musician. And the boyfriend's performance...
Oh, it's laughable. My God. I mean, right when he first gets introduced and he's walking with a certain put-on swagger and his bong in his hand, he's like, I hope you know this is a weed-free household. And it was just so badly
What was the
delivered.
name of his band again? Like Cockley? Something about cocks, wasn't it?
Something in the ear. Cock-ear or...
Cockley ear.
Cockley ear? Oh, I don't know. It was so bad.
Yeah, and of course...
I didn't mind the females' performances, but there were some things... Selena or Serena? What did you say? Serena. There was some moments of that were laugh out loud funny.
Yeah, there's a bit... So there are bits where she's like doing chants and making spells and things. And I'm not sure if she had any actual dialogue actually given to her. Because when she's saying these spells... She's just saying words like anniversary in a voice like that, and
it was her physicality
when I first heard it, I thought, okay, I just must be hearing things here. I'm not really hearing actual words just said in like a demonic voice. But by the time the third time she was doing it, yeah, she was just saying random words like anniversary in a weird voice. And you're about to mention her writhing around and things like this.
Yeah, and do you remember the first time she's up against some shelving?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like The Wicker Man. So there's a scene in The Wicker Man where a woman is basically writhing against a wall and Ed Woodward is the other side of the wall. Wicker Man, this was not. There was also... this movie was dumb. So the Serena, she's making this like concoction of like this weird green drink. It's like a witch's brew. And it stinks the place out. So the two girls are indoors, and all of a sudden the boyfriend walks in, and he notices this smell, and he starts to make a big deal about it. But then Serena asks him, like, where have you been? He says, oh, I've just been on tour. And he pulls out a t-shirt. He says, hey, I got you a t-shirt. And all of a sudden she just takes her top off, revealing her breasts, and then she puts the top on, and then they all just start speaking regularly, like the smell's just gone, because a pair of tits have been shown.
Of course, that's the bit you remember.
And then straight after that, when they're in bed, the boyfriend's in bed with Amber, and after the tit revealing, she's like, oh, she's a bit weird, don't you think? And he's like, no, I think she's pretty cool, actually. Of course he likes her.
Well, again, Serena ends up sleeping with both of them separately.
Yeah, she seduces both of them. I've got to go back to the concoction, because Amber also says about the concoction, and I quote, it makes me fart like a butt trumpet. And as you've mentioned, Serena seduces both the boyfriend and the girlfriend, but after Amber says that this concoction makes her fart like a butt trumpet, I think I would have given her a miss, personally.
Yeah, but Serena's like a demon, isn't
she?
So I don't think she cares about farts.
Also, when she has a way with the two of them,
yeah,
every time she's finished, she backs out of the room like a monkey. Like some kind of deranged monkey.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, and there's another bit where she's making spells, and she reminds me of what I've already said, the anniversary thing. Towards the end, she's walking around and she has her hands down by her hips with her fingers pointed out. Like this. Do it like that. And she's walking around making noises which I would describe as beavers from Beavis and Butthead being cornholio. She's making noises like that, which wasn't scary. And they show her again at around the same time on the other side of the door, and she's kind of like trying to get in, but at the same time doing this weird movements. I just feel like the director just has not helped this actress whatsoever.
It must have been, I mean, as a director, if it was the actress's choice to do all these things, you would have thought he would step in and be like, it just doesn't look right on the screen, because, as I said, it was very entertaining, but it took away from any of the sort of scariness and suspense, because you're just laughing at the person that's supposed to be the demon.
Talking of laughable characters, when Serena moves into the apartment, all of a sudden there's this strange kind of warlock guy who starts hanging out outside the flat, and everyone starts noticing him. And we see at times in the night that Serena will go out there and shout at him while speaking in tongues to kind of like scare him off. And then we finally meet him because Amber goes outside to confront him. And he's a guy who's apparently he's a good guy. He's trying to warn he's trying to warn Amber against Serena. But his dialogue is stuff like, "She took something from me. Give it back and save the world, and I shall reward you well."
Yeah, I know. It was very strange.
He then tells her that Serena is a demon. It's in broad daylight. And as Amber's walking away, he turns around and takes about 2 steps and bumps into Serena, who then stabs him on the street in broad daylight. Yeah, and another reason was probably the thing only lasts about 70 minutes. They just really get on with everything.
Yeah, that side story bit wasn't
No,
the clearest.
it wasn't fleshed out whatsoever. And one of the things that I guess they do stick with is the boyfriend being a musician. At one point in the movie, he gets the news that he's got a record deal. So he's hyped. So he runs over to his guitar to, play a celebratory riff. But he handles and picks up the guitar like he's never seen one before. This actor has clearly never played guitar in his life or even held one.
Oh,
It was too much when I saw him pick up that guitar. I had to rewind it. Yeah, there you go.
I think, as someone who's never played guitar, I even pointed it out to you that I said, this just looks so unbelievable. He's never held an instrument in his life.
No.
Oof, yeah. It was very funny.
I was entertained, and it was probably a good thing that it lasted the 70 minutes. It was kind of the perfect timing for it. Small cast, and I mentioned the stinky drink that Serena makes, and at some point she says that it's made from mushrooms and herbs.
Right.
But that's not the only stinky thing she brings into the house, because she also makes this plate which has like a shiny rock on it and all these other weird things that look like she's been foraging for. And again, at some point, the boyfriend walks to the flat and he's like, "Oh, what's that funky smell?" And under his bed he finds this plate with a rock on it and some other stuff. So she's bringing in, I don't care how poor you are, if your new roommate is bringing in not 1 but 2 stinky things, I'll be like, this has got to end. I'd rather just be chucked out of my own apartment than live by someone that, quote, makes me smell like a butt trumpet.
Would you, even though she's flashed her tits and slept with you?
I can't get past really bad smells. I just can't. And Serena, she's quite attractive, but no, I'm not putting up with her green muck smell.
When you film horror movies, there's probably going to be some horrible smells you're going to have to get over.
Yeah, but not the kind of smell that they're alluding to in this. There's so Serena she first seduces the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And when she seduces the boyfriend, she does so while Amber is asleep next to him. And when she then goes and seduces Amber, Amber's kind of reluctant at first. So Serena has to convince her somewhat to sleep with her. And she does this by saying to Amber that her vagina is a reservoir of instant joy and ecstasy. And that's all Amber needed to hear. Next thing you know, Serena's making her way with her and turning into like a rat-faced demon halfway through it. And both characters seem to see her turn into a rat-faced demon mid-sex and don't really do much about it. They don't even react to her backing out the room like a monkey either.
No, I'm just assuming that the demon in there has put them under some sort of...
It's everything that I expect from Full Moon, if I'm honest. And that's not a shot at them. I enjoyed it.
Well, they got number 1 spot.
For what it is, just very enjoyable. Should be watched just for the apparent musician picking up his own guitar. And the butt trumpet. Is there anything else you can remember from this movie?
No. I think it's worth watching for the physicality that Serena's actress portrays, all her anger and witchcraft.
What do you think's more impressive, this at 125,000 or Chariot at 42,000?
I mean, it has similarities of small location and all of this, but I feel like because of the special effects, Don't Let Her In looked cheaper to me. I mean, doing any kind of special effects or VFX or anything like that with a low budget is such a challenge, and that's why I think Chariot got away with it, because they haven't got any of that. Whereas, the funniest bits were, as you said, when they kind of manipulated footage. So I thought she looked kind of like a spider rather than a monkey or whatever you said, crawling out.
It wasn't scary enough to be a spider.
Not in a good way. It was almost like she was taking a dump, walking backwards, and then they'd sort of jarred the footage.
And once again, we've failed miserably to go through an episode of I Know What You Watched Last Week without mentioning someone taking a dump. Because either it's happening in the movies or someone's just looking like they are, apparently.
Yeah.
I would never watch Chariot ever again. Never ever. There's a chance that I would watch Don't Let Her In again. It's kind of funny. Maybe it's not supposed to be funny. Or maybe it is supposed to be funny.
It's a nice light watch when
it's
you
a
just
light watch.
Are a bit tired and you want something
turn your brain off
and
put on. At least this one was an actual horror movie. It has all like the standard tropes. It's nothing, groundbreaking or anything like that. But the hilarity of, I mentioned again, him picking up his guitar and complaining about the smell in the house and things like this was entertainment enough for me. And of course, breasts. Woohoo!